Hello, welcome to the pod.
Welcome to the podcast. This is The Machine is the Message. Myself, Alan Smith, my man, Patrick Keenan, where we drink a lot of coffee and get all fired up about what's going on in the world of technology and especially AI and products right now. So let's talk about it. Let's drink the coffee and let's get fired up.
Let's do it. All right. I'm starting on Twitter, just to say that we have a Twitter account that you can go to. You can, of course,
That's awesome.
talk to
Look
us.
at this.
I think we do. Maybe we don't. Cancel that. We will, by the end of the podcast, have a Twitter account.
We're going to set it up live on this one.
We're doing a lot of things live. Yeah. Maybe we'll go live on Twitter. I don't know.
Pat is also using Arc browser for the first time this morning on the podcast. So just so you know how bleeding edge this is and how unrehearsed it is, this is it. It's just happening. So tell me again, why would anyone want to try a new browser? Because I just use Safari all the time. This is an area where I don't innovate. Why do you want to use a new browser? Why do you think people should be trying different browsers?
So I think that what's interesting about Arc, as you can see here, is it's like they've spent a lot of time on the UI. So I think browsers, you know, you have the tabs, you have the view. There's like not a lot that's been innovated on. To be honest, I don't know all the features here. There's like these spaces, I guess. They have different colors or something. Anyway, I haven't dove into it. It's just beautiful enough for me to be like, okay, this is interesting. And as somebody who likes to ogle over pixels and states, it just feels good. Like, I don't know, the UI feels good. I think there's like a lot of shortcuts that you can do. And yeah, just gonna give it a go.
All right.
I think also there's AI built in somehow, but I don't know what it is yet. Right.
There's going to be AI built into everything soon, and we're not going to know what it is for a while. Let's talk about this AI pin first. Let's talk about what's going on with Humane. Let's pull up their website. Let's describe what the product is for people, and then talk about why we think this thing is interesting.
Right. So
their website's beautiful too. Hue.ma.ne. Crazy URL.
All right, here we are.
Yeah, here we go. All right, so what is it? Describe the AI pin to us.
So this is a pin you place on your bag or on your person, and it's got a camera built in. It's also got kind of like private-ish bubble audio that you can hear. It's got a microphone, so it can see and hear your surroundings, and you can ask it stuff. So it's integrated with ChatGPT. Let's see. Yeah, you can watch the video, and I think it's just like it is just a demo of them, kind of like doing some key scenes. It would be like almost what you would do in a product concept video. Like you're like, hey, what are we gonna do for like our vision? This is almost like a vision, but the thing works. My favorite part...
Welcome to Humane.
And I don't know if you can see this, but my favorite part of the video is this guy is just like so unexcited.
Oh my God, yes. In the video, it felt like if they just come off of like 7 all-nighters and were given like an IV drip or something to just show up, and like, how unexcited are you about this product, dude? Like, it was crazy. Look, it's kind of a refreshing take from Apple's like, we're so excited to share this with you today, like, you know, vibe. But like, it's so far in the other direction that it was actually hilarious. I was like, guys, you've been working on this product for years.
And they're like, fine.
This is an entire new paradigm. This is like introducing the iPhone, and you guys look like you're like at a funeral. Like, what's going on, right? Like,
yeah, and I
didn't understand the tone of this video. The content, let's leave that for another one, but just the tone?
The tone was very strange until this moment. It's like, your message says, I'll be there later tonight.
Make me sound more excited.
Make me sound more excited. because he did not sound excited.
He doesn't sound excited at all.
Yeah.
So they must be aware of that, but it's just bizarre. It's bizarre to see this like kind of mundane launch of the new AI that we'll all apparently be wearing around. Anyway.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go to the website. Like if you go to the main page and then click on the learn more thing, the video is cool. If you're interested in this product, go watch the video. But let's just scroll through their thing now. So it's got this laser ink display, which is basically a mini projector that projects out onto your hand, right? So if you're not familiar with it, it kind of projects on your hand, and then you move your hand around, and the camera watches your hand. Or is it LiDAR or something? But who cares what the tech is? Basically, it figures out how your hand is moving, and then that's the interface. So you pinch with your fingers, or you tilt your hand in different directions, or close your palm, right? So there's different gestures that sort of do different things. Close your fingers to make a selection, tilt and roll your hand to move through items in a list or whatever. Yeah, so that's one way of interacting with it. You talk to it kind of like Siri. It's not always on. And so we talk about the always on observer here. And so they call that out, that it's not always on. And so throughout the video, you notice the guy tapping, right? Like he's putting his finger up to it constantly to tap this thing. What do you think of that? This is a really bold choice as far as how to interact with this thing.
Yeah, I think that there are several. So we are at a paradigm shift. I think this is even bigger than the internet. So the internet, what was really cool about it is we had apps, right? So you had like Windows 3.1, and you could open a GUI. That was a big change. Oh my gosh, I got buttons. We kind of just took that stuff and we put it on the internet, which allowed a bunch of people to make GUIs really fast for all kinds of different purposes. Still the GUI era. This is a new era. And so there are some barriers. There are a lot of barriers. In the same way, Windows required like certain CRTs, or required graphics processors, or required a mouse, sort of all kinds of things. This is going to require a bunch of things. And there's a couple categories I would think about. One of them is this thing, which is social acceptability, right? So it's like, is this weird? And then another thing is, for me, privacy. Like, you can hear what the AI is going to say to my friend. So they spent some time on their like little audio bubble. That's going to be an issue. So there's privacy of like what I want as a human in this world. And then there's social acceptability, which is what other people kind of expect of me. Then there's just behaviorally, like, what is this? Like, this is Star Trek. So I'm
Star
into
Trek,
it.
man. Communicator, 100%. That's what I was thinking.
I'm
It's
into
like,
it, yeah.
Yeah. Locate, Captain Picard.
That's right. Captain
Right.
Picard is no longer on the bridge. Fuck. Yeah. So,
Right?
yeah, so there's that. There's the communicator aspect. But then there's another technical bit, which is like, what's on device, what's not on device, right? And so, like, how is this thing going to work? It's going to talk to the cloud. And so they do have like a network piece, which is like $30 a month. You get unlimited, blah, blah, blah. But you need that. It is a networked device. It cannot work well without the network. So they built that into it. So there's like different.
So does it work at all without the network? I'm curious. Like if you end up, let's say you're out of service area, does it work? Like, does it do anything?
Well, this is the interesting thing, is like, your computer works when it's not on the internet, but are you working? Like, does it really work? Like, yeah, you can like load browsers and stuff, but the whole point of what you're doing isn't the internet. And so for this, because it's voice, sure, it might be able to do synthesis on device, speech synthesis, or like recognize what you're saying, but it won't use ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is freaking huge. So the power of this thing is talking to the mega computer. And if you're not connected, you can't do that. And that is the device, in my opinion.
That's the best way to put it. It's talking to the mega computer. And if you're not connected to the mega computer, you're not getting the true value of the device. It's essentially, maybe a notepad or, an iPod Shuffle, to an extent, right? Like it's a tiny sliver. It's 1% of what it is when it's actually connected.
Yeah. So let's keep going through
Fair.
these features. So familiar gestures.
So I love what you pointed out about the idea of social acceptability, and I hadn't thought of this beforehand. Let's say we're just hanging out talking, and then I'm like, what's 15 times like 28, or what's 20,000 USD in CAD, and you're like, dude, I don't know those things, but I'm actually just asking my AI, because it's relevant. But if you see me go like this, right, then you know that I'm not asking you, right? Like I'm asking the AI the same way. Like if I pick up the phone or I say, hey Siri, right, it's like a signal that one, we're opening this conversation for a minute to the AI, and I'm speaking to it directly now, like a social signaling thing. And that does seem more intentional now that, like, clearly it was an intentional choice. I'm just catching up to like how they made this choice.
Well, that brings me to my whole point about this, which is I think they made the choice and then figured it out. They were like, we're going to make the communicator, which is cool. Like, I think that's a great, it's better to start than to kind of wait and define and define and define and not start anything. But they went so deep down how the communicator could work that I think they kind of forgot that there are watches, there are phones, there are glasses, and I love that somebody is looking at this form factor. I love the beauty and the snappability of these things, that they looked at the pin and how it could work. It's just so tasty. But I think at the core, I question the premise. Like, I don't know if people are going to wear these pins around.
This is the best execution of this form factor possible as of today. Like, I don't think you could do this any better. This is the best. So now it's like, is this form factor on the chest better than this form factor on the watch, which is also connected to a larger ecosystem? And well, obviously the other things connected to a larger ecosystem as well. But yeah, this is the best you could have done. Let's keep scrolling through. There's some interesting stuff here.
Think out loud. Designed to handle the simple and the complex. AI might quickly finds what you're looking for.
I don't know what that means. It's like...
What's that exhibit?
So
Ava texted me. Ava recommended the moon phases. Can I still see it? Yes.
Right. So this idea is searching through your text threads, right? They're talking about that use case where rather than scrolling through a bunch of text threads, you just ask it, you're sort of rewinding a conversation almost. What was that thing that Pat and I talked about in that podcast, a week ago, right?
Yeah.
But in this context, it's a little narrower to, specific messaging threads. Yeah. Basic use case, essentially applying an LLM to a data set, which happens to be a message thread, right?
I think it's non-trivial how they get this information. I'm not sure. Like, I guess they're connected to SMS, so they have the SMS pieces. But if you're texting, is your SMS going to go to both devices? Like, I think there's some interesting questions technically about how you get.
I didn't get that from their intro, and I haven't seen an answer for that yet. Like, is this the same as my text from iOS? And it's like, because this is coming from a different number, right? Is there a way for me to keep them the same, or now do I have two numbers? And then, like, does this add fragmentation, or does it add simplicity? And that's another thing that I think is really worth talking about more here is, while a lot of technology seems to add fragmentation, they're really focused on making it like, look, the name is Humane, right? They're trying to make it so we're on screens less and we're using technology to help us get what we want, rather than spending time, quote unquote, on technology. That it's just kind of there when we need it, and we don't have to think much more about it, right? And that mission is great. You don't have to read it in their mission statement or anything. You can just see it in the product and the design choices that they've made and how they've developed it.
Yep. I think that's true. I also think that, like, to me, it just feels paternalistic to be like, hey, we know you can't control yourself, and we're gonna, like, help you not have to look at your phone. Like, I think it's very unrealistic that somebody who's buying a $700 pin doesn't also have a $700 watch and a $700 phone and a $700 MacBook. Like, they're gonna have these things. And so the question
Mhm.
is, how can you help people achieve their goals rather than how can you prevent them from, like, you know, having to, like, I don't know, doing things that you think are not good. Anyway, that's just like, that's the moral value piece of this thing. But from the form factor, I think it's a great form factor, but there's the network behind it, which is like yet another thing. Is like, how do you import these conversations into your pin? And any text message service, like if you think about like a Signal or a WhatsApp or an iMessage or an Android message, they're not going to let you import all your history. There's like a serious
True.
privacy issue, which,
Yep.
many companies have realized is you can't just like let developers pull this stuff in. So to have that depth of kind of text history, I technically am very curious to see how they pull it off.
And even to your point, and this speaks to another, kind of paradigm that we're seeing in this new AI age, is even if you could, like from a data privacy perspective, allow someone to have access to all that data, would you? Like most people are seeing their data as a core key resource for the business to be able to drive their AI feature set,
Yeah.
or to be able to sell that data. Like people aren't giving data away as freely as they used to be. Everybody's seeing their proprietary data as core to their business in some way. And I shouldn't say everybody, but this is something that is a really big deal. AI without data is, much less exciting.
Yep. Yep. So this is the screen, I guess, where you can see the words. Is that Futura? Must be some cut of Futura. Or what do you think that is?
I don't know. To me, it looks like almost like an avant-garde type thing, or like it's. Let's go to next page. Like when it's bigger.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
Or like a Century Gothic or something.
Mm-hmm.
Not Futura. The A's aren't pointy.
Yeah, and the G
and the
is
F
not.
is a little different. But,
yeah. Interesting. Well, it's nice typeface.
The design's great overall.
Yeah.
Mindful of your time, unnecessary so they're doing some work to make sure that you don't get too many notifications.
Yep.
So look, a different solution to the same problems that we're seeing elsewhere, focus modes, we see on iOS. Is there anything on Android that tries to solve this problem for
Yeah, there's
people?
definitely well-being features, and there's kind of like a do not disturb, like there's a bedtime mode, and like your screen dims and it turns off your apps, and yeah, so
Cool.
everything has a answer to how you can manage your modes. From my experience, my main interaction with these modes is that I turn them off. Like they're a nice thing, but I don't know that they are doing what they intend. Like they're not a fully baked system. Probably something that has some level of AI in it will solve for this kind of stuff. But again, the question is, can they, like when they say choose who can reach you, it's like, is that on their app? Are they going to have like a messaging app where everybody's got to have a pin? Like to me, this requires some kind of network.
It's a great question. Yeah. On this point, let's just dwell here on notifications for a minute as a starting point. I did a thing like I think it was back in April, and I had every notification turned off, like all notifications, just like notifications off, right? And I ended up not turning most of them back on, including text. And while it's created a few problems, every once in a while, like maybe like once every few days, I'll get a text and someone will be like, "Oh, you didn't see my text?" I'm like, "No, I didn't see your text," or they're looking for me. But people have figured out that if they really need me, they just got to call, and like calls can come through. I'm okay with that. But essentially, like I don't see notifications for text. I see notifications for calendar events because I'll miss them otherwise. But that's pretty much it. And like my health stuff, I get some notifications on, which actually I probably don't even need. But there's a lot of talk about like the ultimate, pro tip is focus, or the ultimate skill in today's environment is focus. At least on my phone and my watch, I've been able to sort of bring that back by just kind of turning off all notifications. It's not a mode; it's just my default state at this point, and it's worked out pretty well. It's just like honestly, I feel pretty comfortable with it. It does require a little bit of like workflow where you need to go in and check at some point, but at least you're being intentional about checking at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I wonder too is like when we say notifications, we're talking about an app-based API. So like, for example, messages, iMessage sends me a message, or like Gmail sends me a message. Within that, there are kind of like filters in the app. So like, close friends sent me a message, or like, this is a priority email. But there's no higher level, like, well, there is in Android and increasingly on iOS, like, LinkedIn wants to send you a message right away, but it won't send you these things right away. And so it's still on an app level. Like, I do wonder if all messages are the same. Like, if you got a message is like, hey, somebody's got to pick up our kid from school. It's like, that's an important thing, versus like, hey, so you around tonight? Like, that's like, okay, not as important. So we have this like on or off decision around messages, and I just wonder if it'll be like kind of more looking at the content of the thing than the app that it's sending.
That is genius. And I think one way of thinking about this stuff we've talked about before is thinking about AI as an intern or as a personal assistant who can do a bunch of the work that you just don't have time for, right? And so imagine you had an assistant who read all your stuff, and if something was really important in a meeting, like imagine you were in an important meeting and there was some emergency text, they would open the door even if it was your most important client, or it was an incredible, and they would say, hey, there's an emergency, I need to talk to you for a second. You would welcome that interruption at that point. And the only way that you would get that interruption is somebody who made a judgment call, like read the content, made a judgment call, and then sort of notified you or reached out to you about it. And yeah, it's not just about the people. It could be about the content, and I wonder if that's part of their algorithm, as it were. Google does some work on this for you. It organizes things that are newsletters, right? Into different folders, and Superhuman, if you use that for email, does the same thing in terms of like organizing your email into like, you seem to think these ones are more important. I don't know how much it does based on the content. Say what this person said makes this a more important email.
Yeah.
But that's a brilliant idea. I don't know if I've heard that before, man. That's cool.
Yeah, and I think, but I like the intern piece. And one of the things I think about is, in innovation kind of adoption, one of the really important pieces is observability, that you can see that other people are doing it. And that's like the genius mark of the sent from my iPhone. It's like a genius thing that was there at the beginning. It's like a social status piece, but it was like, hard to figure out how to remove it. And it was fine. People were like, that's fine. It didn't link to anything. It just said this was sent from an iPhone. And you're like, whoa, you could type on an iPhone really well. That's like a long email. So the question is, in this new world, is there an observability piece to having an intern? And one of the things I think about is on Google, like I get a call, I don't know who it's from, I can say like, let Google figure out who it is. And it's like, this person's using call screening. Tell me a bit more about what you're calling about. And then it's like, some Chinese UPS thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to accept that. And that's all text transcribed to me. But you can imagine that happening with the people who are sending you messages. It's like, hey man, are you around tonight? It's like, Alan's using this assistant. Is this something that's urgent? Can I help you arrange a restaurant that might work? I wonder if the assistant could visibly sit between you and the people who are reaching out to you. That would lead to a better experience for them, because they could like compose and figure stuff out. And by the time it hits you, it's just like, hey, we figured this thing out. Do you want to do it or not? I'm like, no, I can't.
VCs, listen up. Pat Keenan on the job. I'm loving it. The idea of there's something about when also it's just easier for people to think about stuff as like people than apps, I think. Like
Hmm.
there's like, this whole like jobs to be done concept of you're hiring a product to do a job for you, right? Like that's jobs to be done. Um, I think about in this context. Okay, so I was doing an interview the other day, for a new product idea that we're working on, and we're talking to psychologists and psychotherapists and psychiatrists, and we're looking at the topic of note taking, right? Because there's a few tools out there that do some stuff there. There's all this language, and they were having a really hard time with the idea of technology. And so at one point, I stopped them and asked, like, okay, let's just imagine that like you had an intern, kind of like an invisible intern almost, and they could set some things up for you before the meeting. They could be there in the meeting, but hopefully not too intrusive, and they could do some things for you after the meeting. What tasks would you want to offload to them, or what could they do to make the session better, or their job better? And the quality of answers, like, it was just so much easier for them to think on that track, and they were like, oh, well, you know what, I think they could do this and this. And then which were the answers we were hoping for when we were asking about recordings, which hit a complete brick wall, right? But when you said, no, it's an intern, it's like, well, the intern's listening and it's recording, and it's actually an AI who's parsing this information. That's hard for people because they're trying to think through solutions
Yeah.
through that whole like funnel of different things. And they're like, yeah, no, I don't like recordings because of this and this. And so thinking of things as interns, I just find is, so valuable. And then it's going quickly from interns to coworkers, right? Like it's not just an intern. This is somebody else who's really good at something in your role or in your space, and they can just do this for you. And that's where I think this idea of AIs with names and AIs with personalities is going to start to come through more, because it's just going to be easier for us to interact with, right?
Yeah. 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 Totally. I think that's interesting that, recording, that's a file format. Like AI, that's a technical implementation. But what you're trying to do is think about, what does intelligence add? And like the best
Yes.
way to think about intelligence is like another human. And like the
It's the
biggest,
easiest for people right now,
yeah,
right?
and the biggest challenge with AI is and computers and apps and anything is like software. What can I do? Like it's kind of starting to understand the constraints, and like with AI, it's time to just get rid of the constraints for a sec and talk about, what do you want to happen. And so like the intern thing is great, great framing.
All right, let's jump back to Humane and see what else they got. What other tangents this gives us to talk through.
So it'll let you know when people are reaching out. So it's got a notification light, the modern badge. It learns what takes priority. I'm outside. That's what
From
the
your
message
food
says.
delivery person. Okay. Okay, so that looks like this is what we were just talking about, right? It looks like it's looking at the content and saying, oh, this is important.
Mm-hmm.
It's realizing that, yeah, this is not somebody but it's a food delivery. It's time sensitive. You need this, right now.
Yeah.
And they're outside your house. Interesting.
Yeah. So it must be doing. And I'm just so fascinated about the implementation details of, where is the message hosted? How are they reading it? Is it on device? Is
Yeah.
it in the cloud? Whatever. Okay. Get caught up in moments, not minutes. Quickly catch up. Things you might have missed with one prompt. Catch me up is what you say to it. And then what happens? Catch me up. Well, this is cool. This is
Oof.
a beautiful, I don't know, is this shader? Yeah, so I think this is like, this is 3D, this is probably 3JS. Really beautiful motion.
This reminds me of that Quantcast logo thing we made.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's text exploding a little bit.
That's right. Ahead of your time. There's a lot of blurring and OpenGL on this, WebGL on this thing. It's beautiful.
They spared no expense on the product page.
Yeah.
Which I like. Again, this is like, these are our peeps, man. They're singing the song of our people.
Yeah.
With this website.
Love it. Love it. All the things.
So I think this graphic is trying to communicate the noise of all of this information and then hopefully it's going to come through with some sort of like synthesis if you keep scrolling down.
Okay, and then it all goes into the pin.
That's-
I see. So
there it is. Look, it figured it out. So there was this whole text thread of people talking about where to go for food and like, has anyone gone here and blah blah blah. And then it says, hey, these three people are going to ramen tonight.
Yeah.
Cool. At 7:30.
Yeah.
Yep, it's good. I like it.
Good.
It's good.
So it's summary. So it's basically taking a bunch of texts in a group, summarizing them, and then giving you an output. I guess that's the catch me up thing. I think you can always like inspect and go back into the thread, but probably in this form factor, you just want to like reply.
Yep.
Soundtrack of your life. Okay, this is about music. Oh yeah, it was built in with Tidal. You get like free Tidal, which is funny because I'm like Tidal.
So this is a big one. This is really interesting also from a business perspective, where creating products that like there's this idea that B2C apps are now going to be B2B2C apps, where you need to find this intermediary channel. You need to sell through other people who are creating, channels of some sort, where there's a whole bunch of products that are kind of built into this. And they no longer have interfaces, right? Like those interfaces got completely wiped out. It's just the content, or it's just the thinking, or it's just the database, or it's just the network that you're connecting to in those products with no interface, which is really like that's it. The API component here is more pronounced than ever. It's just there's no other way to do it, right?
So one way to think about that is, do you have unique inventory? So like two examples of that are the new interface for Bing is ChatGPT, right? The new interface for Tidal is this AI pin. So though in both those cases, you have an inventory either of like web scraped kind of like structured data about the internet and web pages, or that you have music. So the question is like, what are those inventories that are proprietary, and then what integrator or like user facing AI are you going to integrate with?
Yep.
You do that for like auto records, or like devices in your home, or appliances, or that's interesting thesis.
Somewhere further down on this, there's a list of like a bunch of the different services that are kind of bundled with the product. This nutrition thing I think is interesting.
Nutrition thing, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. People aren't going to be like,
you don't think it works?
This? I don't behaviorally think. I don't think people will look at a thing and be like, "Can I eat this?" Like, I just don't see it working. But that's just.
Can I eat this? Eating this whole thing would go beyond your. I guess you'd have to look at like how people are using different calorie trackers, and what are the use cases inside of that. What's fascinating though, so let's just talk about the tech here. You're holding up an object in front of you. They've clearly zoned in on this like food use case as like a big one, and like I don't know if they want it to be a diet coach or what, but you could hold up a food in front of you and it will tell you this is like, it's going to take a guess at what the food is and how many calories there are in it, and then you can tell it you ate it, and then it'll track those calories for you and let you know if you're on track for the day or not. As someone who's used macro trackers, I've always dreamed of the day where I could just take a picture of the meal and say, I ate this, just add this to my list, right? And so that use case resonates with me. I get excited about that if it could work. I don't care about can I eat this, or that comes up less often than the use case of track this for me, right?
Yeah, I think it's about latency. And to me, there's two pieces of latency here. One, you're taking a picture, and two, I have to say it. So I have to say, can I eat this? Because I have to like narrow the AI to the task I'm trying to achieve here. And if I hold a piece of fruit up, it should just know like that's what I'm doing. So that's one piece, is like they've chosen to make it an explicit action. And I think if I hold a piece of fruit up to my pin, or whatever, or if I'm eating, it should just know. So that's like one piece of latency. The other one is it's an image. And is that like technically that's a lot harder than me being like I'm holding a dragon fruit or like can I eat a dragon fruit
Yeah.
than this thing. So I don't buy that we'll be holding things up to AI. Like it feels like we're very much underestimating how good AI can be. Like I could just have a photo. Like I just do this and then it knows I'm looking at food, I have a diet, it adds it to my thing. Why do I have to do anything else? And so that's my thing about it is like the friction and the latency there feels unrealistic. But it's a good use case. Like I think, yeah, it'd be good to know all the things I ate today. Why not?
Feels like one step in between to the final state that you're talking about, right? And in a context where this device is not always on, like you need to again sort of activate it, right? Like for each task. That's part of their design decision here.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Just say it, we'll display it. You can compose messages while saving time. So you say, hey, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to tell you a message, Paul. Hope you're doing well. Actually, just make it more casual. So you're just having a conversation.
So as far as speech to text goes, you got the
So
Apple
weird.
Watch recently.
Yeah.
And you're using speech to text more.
Yeah.
Things can go wrong, all right? Like, and you can get into a pretty frustrating loop pretty quickly. What's your experience been as you've dove into this more? I've been on the speech to text train since whenever Apple Watch Series 4 came out, and it was like the first cellular one. And I was like, okay, I'm just not going to use a phone for a while and just use the watch. And that gave me like I just got hooked on speech to text, right? Like that was my sort of like killer app of that's when I started using it. So you've been using it more. What do you think?
There is probably like a path dependency for me in that like I'm just really good at typing. And so the benefits for somebody who's not fast at typing are probably much greater. But I do think there's just too much friction. It's like, composes, do you want to send this to Al? Yeah, okay. And there's like a nice timeout that happens on the watch, like, and there's like a me getting to know the system. Like if I see the timeout and I go away, is it going to send or is it going to cancel that? So just kind of like a getting to know the defaults. But the text to speech thing is so strange because it's so weird. So the guy's like, hey, tell Andrew I'm gonna meet him tonight. Okay, this is a message. Make me sound more excited. It's like, can't wait. But why is he sending a text? Like, why is he not sending a voice message? And then the answer is we're used to text. And then the answer to that is like, let's just go to voice messages. If it's gonna be received by his PIN and then it's gonna read it to him, what kind of bizarre world are we living in where we're translating and pretending to be excited in text and then reading that with some intonation? It's just like it's the space pen to me. It's like it's just so crazy.
Use a pencil, right? No, dude, I don't know how I didn't even see that. It's like a Rube Goldberg machine, right?
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
Like, figure out how to take the words that I'm saying, type them out, run them through this like crazy network, create a voice that can read them out, for me. Why not just send a voice message? Well, because people are used to text. Incredible insight. All right, keep scrolling through this thing. Let's see what other threads we got. I think we're just using this is our whole thing today. We're not even gonna have time to talk about anything.
I mean, it's crazy because the craziest thing that happened this week is OpenAI. And it is nuts. So we'll just have to have a full episode on that next week.
Yeah, I think that's a full episode on it.
Crazy. It's crazy. Okay. We're just gonna have a backlog of AI because this shit's accelerating. So we're just gonna be like
it's going faster than we can, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. All right. Fluent in many languages. Oh, this is a cool one.
3 hours. Right?
Yeah, exactly. This is a cool one. This is this is the translator. So in Star Trek, to be clear though, the universal translator not only translates what people are saying to you and what you're saying to them, it also changes what their lips look like. So we're not there yet. But
So we are there, just not in this form factor. So
yes.
in movies that exists now, and they're doing that.
Oh my God, I have to.
There's
Yeah, this is like a little bit of a diversion, but I have to do. Have you seen Sam Altman in Hindi?
no. Is it amazing?
It is incredible, and you can't hear this,
हमने
but
ऐसा
maybe
किया
people
है कि
can.
आप एक संवाद करके एक जीपीटी को प्रोग्राम कर सकते हैं
I cannot
हम
hear
मान
this.
It is so awesome. Anyway, I'll send it to you after.
Okay, so
Yeah.
look it up if you're interested in this, people.
Yeah.
Sam Altman in Hindi. Just search that in Twitter or Google, and you're gonna find the video. And it's just him speaking in Hindi.
It's the OpenAI keynote, and his Hindi, it sounds like his voice, and it is just bizarre.
Yes.
And like the lips and everything look right. So it is a service. I forgot what the service is, but anyway, yeah, very cool. So that's what this does, except this has more latency again. So it's like they say this thing, and it's like this thing, and then the person
Right.
hears, and then they say something. What do they say? And so like the latency piece here, I think is going to be a big deal, as well as like they can like there's a weird speaker thing there. It's like I can hear what I just said in English when it comes to you. So I don't know. We'll see.
There's actually almost something kind of nice about that. It's kind of interesting.
Mhm,
This is making me want a bowl of noodles too. Holy crap, that looks good. Okay, let's keep going.
How spicy is it? Capture the moment while staying in the moment. Okay, so this is the camera piece.
So
So you can.
you can just tell it to take a photo, like you just say take a photo or whatever.
You
Use
can use
AI
the mic
mic.
or you double tap with 2 fingers. So it seems like they have multi-finger tapping. Well, that's cool. I like it.
It's kind of like it's got a little bit of a GoPro style because it's like it's a wide angle lens and it's like on your chest, right, or like
Yeah.
wherever you put it. I'm assuming most people are putting it somewhere around their like upper body area. Like it doesn't feel like it would work really any lower. And like, could you put it on a hat? Does that really make sense? Not
It's
really.
interesting
Like,
because you will never be able to frame this shot. Like it will never replace a camera, which means you will always have a phone in your pocket.
well, those are broad strokes. What about like what if framing it isn't something you do at the moment? What if it's something that's done
That's interesting.
afterwards and it's edited, right?
That's
Like so the computational photography
Yeah.
piece where with iOS, it's like, well, it's what, this camera's just never going to be good enough because it's not big enough. The lens needs to be deeper, and they're like, well, we'll just add 3, and then we'll add a whole bunch of computational photography to it to make it a good photo. And then they made an amazing camera that's really small, which
And then it
from
captures
the laws of physics
through
didn't
Gaussian.
exist, right?
Yeah, it captures through Gaussian splatting, and you just like turn it. You can change the perspective, and yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
Maybe we won't take photos in the future. We will make photos with our digital twins.
Imagine this of like, could you get me so imagine it was always on. Let's go to the always on thing because this one's not there now, but look, it's all going there.
I see.
Like that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
imagine we're always on, and now I'm like, could you make me a photo of that time I was horseback riding in Mongolia with the eagle hunter and the mountain in the background?
Oh, shit, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no problem. I recorded that. I'll just go make an awesome image of that for you.
Oh my
Crap.
God! Could
Like,
you
this is-
imagine, like, hey, like, cut my trip as like a trailer, for like Breath of the Wild, and have like a helicopter shot of me riding a horse, and like that will happen. And put
It
like
will,
movie
because
music in it. Yeah.
all the data will be there, right? Like you could get done, one
Oh
way or
my
the other.
God.
Yeah, and like whether or not it's through, images that were captured on site, or just it knows what that looks like and it knows what you looks like, so it puts you in it. One way or the other, it's there. This one I think will be really interesting for. Could you get me a photo of just really specific moments with specific people that you wanted to capture that are like specific to that moment, rather than I want a picture of me, in a business suit standing on a stage giving a keynote, right? Like that's like a different use case as opposed to like, I want photos for this usage versus for presentation to others versus for myself, for my own memes,
Yeah,
right?
I think one's like generative, which is like make this thing that didn't happen look real, and the other one is like
Yes.
show me. It's like memory. It's for recollection, but I still think it's crazy to think that like because we started this conversation because I was like, you're still gonna want to frame the shot. I am now convinced you will never need to frame the shot, and
Yeah.
that like you
That's
can.
what we talked about a minute ago, right?
Yeah.
Like what you're saying, the idea of if you had to having to trigger the AI, right? Like having to trigger the photo. That's the thing that could potentially go away. Like you might not have to do that.
Yeah.
You just ask for it after the fact when you want it.
And I think the other piece is that you walk through the world with a first person perspective. But this could be this chance for you to have like a non first person perspective in a world where things are networked and sort of trustworthy. You could like get the camera feed of when you were in that place, like from other people's cameras. They could share it with you.
Yeah.
And now you can like reconstruct the memory, but not from your perspective. I think that's nuts. That's a nuts thought.
That's
that our
really
memories
weird.
are other people's memories. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. From recorded by others, right?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Everything that belongs to you. This is a cool looking website. I really like the little things here and like the type, and feels really good.
And it's skateboarding in Toronto again. These guys
Whoa,
are
Toronto! What?
They're such hipsters.
100%.
Skateboarding through Toronto, Canada. Shout out Toronto. Let's go. Humane. Who from Humane is in Toronto and
Yeah.
push for that.
For real. Yeah, that's cool. Let's find out.
Go back. That picture is like that she's in Toronto.
Yeah, this is weird. Is this like generating this because I'm in this locale, or that's a Toronto bike share? What the what?
Oh, maybe. Oh, that's crazy. It could be. Look, TTC logo in the background. Toronto fire truck. I don't know that corner, but that's definitely Toronto. Bike share bike.
Yeah, I think this is King. I think King and maybe
Yeah. All right.
something. Weird. Okay, cool. Well, all the worlds collide. So we got OpenGL shaders in the background. We got AI.
Localization.
We got localization. We got Toronto. That's what this podcast is all about. So
we got video rolling. Yeah, we're talking about a fancy website. That's where we're at with the podcast.
Yeah, cool.
What's the Cosmos? Click the Cosmos thing.
What do you mean? Oh yeah.
At the bottom right of the website.
I see.
So Cosmos OS. This is their operating system, I guess. An OS for the world. That's like, I don't know. That's weird. I want to see where it pulls out. Yeah, this is pretty technical stuff. I don't know if this makes sense to you or not.
Well,
but
they're just talking about display and like how they're getting context, like where you are, your food that's in front of you, I guess.
Right.
Gestures. Yeah, I guess this is the hand tracking. It's just like the different pieces of the stack, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the different apps in the stack. Go to the next page for a sec. Okay, so this doesn't really tell us much. So OpenAI, Slack, Tidal. I'm interested in the partnerships, right? Like, this is what we're talking about in terms of to power a device like this, they need a whole bunch of different services to make it work, right? You can't build all those things from the ground up, so they're adding all those in these services. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like they have a good partnership list between Google and Microsoft. I mean, that's
Google, Microsoft, OpenAI. Like, they've got the carrier there, and then they must have. I wonder why they brought Slack.
Slack is a weird thing.
Cool. They're like that's like I know LeBron James and some minor B celebrity on like a comedy circuit, right? It's like you just like throw out these like Olympians and like super
Yeah.
famous people and
And Alan Smith.
no offense, Slack. It's just there you go.
Patrick, I know those guys.
No offense taken.
Yeah. So what was I gonna say about
Okay,
this?
so are you gonna buy one? What do you think? Are you gonna buy one of these?
No, I can't. I can't justify it as it is. It'll be interesting to see the app ecosystem. I just don't see it, guys. I think it's beautiful and so well executed, and there's so many pieces to this that are clearly going to be informative of this next generation of computing devices. I just don't know why it's better than a watch and better than a phone. That's where I come back to. Yeah.
So, what have you actually been using the watch for? Because you're new to Apple Watch. Tell us about, okay.
Honestly,
this
it's just
isn't
been
better than a watch.
notifications.
Why is the watch so great?
It's just been quick
That's it, eh?
notifications and sleep tracking. That's informative to me. I don't know that it's changed my behavior. Perhaps I feel a little bit guilty when it says stand up, and then I stand up. I don't think I'm leveraging the full extent of what it can do, but it's cool to see like what you can fit into the tiny little interface that it is, and how they've like intentionally limited the functionality. Yeah, like you don't really have apps in the same way you do on the phone, which is it feels like that's got to change, but I don't know.
There's a few things that are similar, like as far as like the tapping the communicator thing with Humane. With this, like you raise it up, right? You just sort of like the raise to talk to the watch.
Doesn't really always work for me.
And then people know. I've been having to actually say, "Hey Siri," not right now, Siri. But I've been having to say it. It's like the raise to talk thing. I haven't actually got to work yet. But I also switch. So I'm going back on the no phone experiment for a while. I've got my phone locked up, and I just carry the watch around now. And we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Yeah. I'll check in on that. I have like 5 phones around me and 3 computers, so it's just not gonna happen.
You have 5 phones around you, dude? What's going on?
I have all these phones, phones back there. Anyway,
It's bonkers.
that's my job.
Okay. That's my job, he says. All right. What was the big takeaway for you? So also, I don't know if I'm gonna buy this thing. I don't know if I'm gonna buy this thing. I want it to work. I'm not sure I'm that early adopter for it. I feel like I'm a version 2 person. When Apple Watch came out, for me, it was a no-brainer. I'm in. I bought the very first one, and I've loved it from day one. I've been wearing an Apple Watch every day since, when did the first Apple Watch come out? This is actually like a Apple Watch launch date. The original was, geez, this is ages ago, man. I feel old. This is Apple Watch launch dates. I'm getting sidetracked here, man, but
2012.
I'm not sure if I'm.
I don't know.
I'm not sure if I'm that much of an early adopter for this.
Yeah, I just think it's all about network effects and integrations. And that's what I'm most curious about, because what they manage to pull off will be demonstration for new hardware products. I don't think the pin form factor is the central constellation of the center of your like device constellation in the same way that perhaps a watch could be, or I've seen rings before, or even just like the phone. I do think the question is who can crack the always on observer. These guys have a chance to do it. Hopefully they have some flag on their device that allows you to like kind of more easily do that without the latency and friction. I think there's so much here that is such fertile ground for the next generation of devices, and there's no question in my mind we are there. We are on that cusp. We are on that cusp between the chat GPTs that you're seeing, this pin, all the different wearables that are out there, and the fact that the new internet is talking to the mega computer. It is here. And this is the time where there will be a paradigm shift. I'm not sure this is the one, but there's so many pieces here that it's so exciting to see.
It's making me want to watch the movie Her again. It's making me want to like. There's so much here. This is really really interesting, and kudos to the team at Humane. There's like again, if there's so much cool going on here,
Yeah.
and look, even if you're not into these, the newest tech and everything, I think this is a really interesting device to go take a look at, to just see how this is different, right? Like it feels. This is a really different team and a really unique voice and a really unique vision for the future. From I believe like a team that seems like they really care and wants to do something great, and that gets me excited. I love seeing that type of work, and it makes me really excited for them and what they've done. Even more excited than them, apparently, based on what intro video.
I will just have one last thing around this demo video, which is hilarious. Is one of the clips is like, "Where's the best place to see the eclipse?" And it's like, you should be in Australia or East Timor. It's totally wrong. It's totally hallucinated by the AI. So,
and they got the date wrong too, apparently.
Oh, did they? Oh,
they showed the date.
So sad.
They showed the last eclipse, not the new one.
Oh no. Yeah.
And look, the trust factor is going to be there for a while too. It's sort of like AI hallucinations and getting stuff wrong.
Yeah. Show your references. That's what you need. Cool. With that, that was deep dive. Next time we'll deep dive on the new GPTs. Maybe make a GPT until so we can talk about it. That'd be cool. Anybody can make one.
Thanks everyone for joining us and getting all fired up on coffee and talking about the AI paradigms of this one new device form factor, which is pretty exciting. We don't see this all that often, so I think it was really worth spending the time on. I'm glad we spent the time here and used it as a jumping off point for a bunch of other topics. This was good.
See you next time on The Machine is the Message.